welcome to this month's Typhoon for the Secret Beach. Hello, beachcombers. I am you're not on yet. I am.
I know myself.
I will be your captain today. How are you? No, just kidding. Staci is going to be giving a presentation. Let's bring her in here. There she is. Hi, Stace. How are you, honey?
Just lovely. And you?
I'm good. I need to do that real quick. And do that. All right. So today we are talking a couple things. We're talking about how to get your significant other who isn't in thrifting involved and want to participate. That's the thing. Want to participate in your business. And then also, have you invested in yourself? Are you going to get to retirement and go, oops? Because you shouldn't do that. So let's make sure we don't get to that point and have you go, oops.
See Becky Dick's comment?
What? Drag him in here, Beck. Drag him in. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to high five and hand the ball off to Staci. So let me get this all set up. And remove me. There we go. All right. Here comes Staci. All right, get in there.
Whoops, hit the mic. Ooh, okay. Ooh, seat's nice and warm. All right, and my feet aren't touching the ground, by the way. All right, so just want to make sure everyone can hear me and see me okay. I'm guessing that's a yes. Ooh, I don't have the non-glare glasses on my glasses.
So bring them down to bridge your nose a smidge.
I look like a librarian.
I said a smidge, not a...
Whatever. All right. Okay, so Jason gave you a very nice little intro, and we're kind of, a lot of it when we talk about getting your significant other involved, you automatically think spouse. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is, I may refer to spouse or talk about husband and wifely kind of things, but it really could be anybody, your kids, your friends, whatever. But I think it's a lot of this will ring more truly with folks that have the spouse that is not that into it. So let's get started. Okay, so I've talked about this a couple times, and so these slides are going to look familiar to some of you, but I've added a lot too. So you will not be disappointed, I guarantee it. So the first thing is, we're calling it bribes, but just keeping the non-thrifting partner in mind. So you really want to go thrifting because Savers is having a 50% off sale. Maybe it's right next to a movie theater. So you say, hey, let's go hit Savers, and then we'll go see that movie that we wanted to see. So it is, it's a team, it's team. So propose doing both as opposed to just going out for a day of thrifting. What was that?
Dragon control from over here.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's really it. It's none of this is rocket science. It's just kind of, putting it all together and thinking about it. So next is, if you have somebody who agrees to go with you, negotiate the time, or even if they're not agreeable, say, hey, listen, why don't we just go start small? Now, you guys are probably going to laugh about what I say right now, but when I say small, I mean like hit one or two areas in the thrift store, or one or two garage sales, or limit your time, 15 minutes. Now, to you guys, 15 minutes may seem like I can't even scratch the surface. To somebody like us, it's almost like a lifetime. So you have to think, if you had to stand up and talk in front of somebody, in front of a group for 15 minutes, that's a long time, especially if it's something that you really don't want to do or not that into. So by negotiating, it shows that you care about the other person. If they go, it shows that they're giving you that little bit. And hey, it just makes you test your skills to see how much you can find in 15 minutes. And Christine, bribes work for kids too. Yeah, see, so a lot of this is appropriate for more than just your stuff. Next is turnabout is fair play. So what I mean by that is that offer to do something that the non-thrifter likes. You don't necessarily have to wait for them to ask. You can say, hey, why don't we go do XYZ, because they like it. Because I know the way I am is that if I keep asking Jason if he wants to do something and he always says no, I'm going to stop asking. So it'd be a nice little present surprise for you to offer to go do something that that they're not really into. So, for example, the reason we have this on here is I love running. Jason does not. But when I was training for my marathons and my longer runs, he'd come meet me on his bike, or he would, he'd come with me on race day and cheer me on at the finish line or during a race. In Chicago, he followed me around to a couple different spots as I was running and just and supported me that way. So it is, you can be involved. It goes both ways is really what I'm trying to say on this one. So next is, as you guys know, there's a lot of different ways and places to thrift. Thrift is kind of that generic Xerox term, but you can go to garage sales. You can go, and I hate to say the word bins, you can go to to thrift stores. So maybe you try different things because they are different. Like I would much rather go to garage sale, like a full day of garage selling than a full day of Savers, just because I just need that change of scenery. You can't really spend that much time in anyone's garage, really. So I don't get bored, because I get bored very easily. So that may be something to do, is test it out and explain to them, that it's a different experience depending on where you go. So maybe there'll be one that they really like, or maybe even more than one. And then you plan those trips around your spouse going to the places that they like. Next is learning the business. So, and I'll talk about this throughout the presentation, is that this really is, I mean, for most people, this is a business. I mean, if it's a hobby for you too, that's fine, but it's still a business, even if it's a hobby. So it's so different than what a lot of, I'll say, 9-to-5ers are, office workers, whatever the business is that your kids are in, or your spouse, that take the time to sit down and show them what you do and how you do it. Maybe they would love to take pictures or do the listings. And maybe they just don't like the shopping part. Now, I know Jason, his favorite part is the shopping. And then the other stuff is just necessary evils because you have to sell the stuff.
My favorite part, get paid.
Well, yeah. So to get paid, you have to do the other stuff. But so I would do the same. Or the non-thrifter could do the same. And maybe you don't really know what they do either. Like Jason knows a little bit about the stock market. I've taught him some stuff. And he, throws around terms like he thinks he really knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't. But it's cute. So those are the things where let them know what you really do and how you do it and why it takes so long, because it's not an easy process. I've watched Jason do it for years, and there's a lot to it to be successful. And the biggest thing is be patient. This is new and can be definitely a new avenue for a lot of folks. So that's just you treat them like as if you were going to hire a new employee, or if you were a new employee, how would you want somebody to treat you if they were teaching you their business? Next is giving them a list. Now, I love lists. Apparently, so do pugs. But keep it simple. You really can't screw up a list, right? You just whatever. If it's a certain kinds of jeans or certain CDs to look for it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it can be a little. It's very simple, which is not a bad thing. So it makes it easy to focus, and then you kind of going back to the negotiating time. When their list is done, you leave. So there's that light at the end of the tunnel, so that they know that they're not going to be stuck there forever, or whatever it is. So you start off small, and as they maybe get more into it, then you give them bigger lists. And as a side note with lists, Jason does have a CD Bolo list in the files, so you guys can take a look at that, print it off, and there you go.
Easy place to start.
It's already even created for you. You don't even have to make it. So that's always really helpful. And that's how I got started years ago, even just before he was such a big thrifter. It's just when we would go to the record stores. Learning to scan. So that goes along with, learning the business, show them show the spouse or the person how to use eBay and Amazon. Either if it's eBay, you want to look for solds. If it's Amazon, you want to be able to understand the rankings and the prices a little bit, because Amazon can be, it's not necessarily that straightforward sometimes, but just that makes it easy. So you've got your list, you've got your phone, you get the apps on there, you scan them, you're kind of self-sufficient. And then you as the thrifter can go off and do your stuff while we are doing our little part to help out. Next is I know you guys like to call them profit piles. I'm calling it a death pile because because every once in a while I just want to kill somebody who created the death pile. So I think it's a very appropriate name. But you're like I say, like you've heard, I'm sure you've heard the expression before. You can try to pretty it up and call it a profit pile, but you can put lipstick on a pig and guess what? It's still a pig. So it's a pile of stuff that you need to get rid of. And this is probably, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, besides slide number 8, this is it. If you can forget everything else I said tonight, but this is so huge. And I know it's probably the most difficult depending on your setup. But if we had a basement, all of our troubles would be solved, but we don't. So we had to buy another house. But it really is. I say this in all seriousness. I have a breakdown about 4 times a year, pretty much quarterly, just because it gets overwhelming, and it does. It can. I know that the thrifter in the family doesn't do it on purpose, but it does tend to get out of control very easily and very quickly. So you've got to do yourselves a favor and conquer the hoard. And I also, Jason didn't know I was going to say this, but I asked Jason the other day, and I was serious. I was not being sarcastic, which I can tend to be, but I asked if he thought he'd be able to have everything listed that we currently have, be caught up by the end of 2020. And so I wasn't being, even though that's like over a year, we've got a lot of stuff. And I really was serious about it. And he said, oh no, we could definitely for sure be done by then. So now my next question is going to be to focus on, getting him to commit to a date. When are we going to have this done by? And then the thing is too, is like make short-term goals and long-term goals so you don't get overwhelmed. If you just say, I'm going to get this all cleaned up in 6 months, it's too much to break off. For those of you who ever tried to lose weight, they always say you have small short-term goals along the way. So you want to lose 5%, then another 5% of your weight. So this is the same thing. Say, okay, I'm going to conquer this pile, or I'm going to work on this for a half an hour, whatever it is, but make sure it is a consistent goal that you can stick with. Because if not, you get frustrated and you stop, and then your spouse has their quarterly breakdown. Next is show the numbers, especially if your spouse or your significant other is a business-minded person. What are you netting? This will add credibility to what you're doing. Plus, it might be a good wake-up call for you if you're not actually bringing in whatever you consider to be enough. What that number is that you feel or you've determined you need to be bringing in to help contribute to the household budget. And really, you need to know your numbers. You really need to know if you're being successful or not. So if you should, how do you ever know if you need to change anything if you really don't know how successful or non-successful you're being? So it really helps in both, for both parties. And the biggest thing with all of this too is you don't want to force it. I mean, your spouse better than anybody else does, and communication really is key. Getting them to join in may just not work, and that's okay. If you think about, Jason didn't go to work with me. It's just because, but this is different. So it has a more social aspect. You can actually, it's easier for somebody to join in this type of job than for him to come and sit in my office from 9 to 5. I can't imagine Jason having a 9 to 5 job. So as I'm sure everyone else is agreeing, but so it's different. Hopefully how much you can push versus just not pushing. But I think not pushing is just as important as pushing if you feel like there is that potential where if they could just see, what this little trinket actually is worth, then maybe they'll start getting the bug. But and I'm certainly not trying to be any kind of family counselor, but you have to know what makes your spouse happy and focus on that. So if it doesn't happen, you just want to make sure you're respectful of each other's careers, your hobbies, your retirement, your hopes and dreams, whatever it is. It's just, you don't want to be negative. You may, there's been many times where I said, no, I'm not going to go thrifting. And Jason just goes by himself. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's my mom used to always say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But it's true. You don't have to demean or have something be contentious. It's just different and you don't want to do it. And that's fine. But I'm hoping that these little tips may help coax them along a little bit. So the next thing is, especially if whether they get on board or not. I mean, they're going to be on board, hopefully one way or the other. Maybe not next to you in the thrift store, but at least more supportive of your career choice. Is define it, and this is good for you too. Like, what is it that you're doing? Is it a hobby? Are you doing this for your vacation fund, tuition, to pay the mortgage, or is it an integral part of your household finances? Commit to calculating what you need to bring in and how you plan on doing it. And it's probably more important to do that if you're dependent on this income versus if you just want the extra income. But still, either way, again, it kind of helps you know how successful you're being and how realistic you're being with your focus. Can you make $10,000 a month? I don't know, maybe. Or if you only need to make $1,000 a month, that's fine too. Whatever it is, your personal situation is different, but you want to make sure you're not just kind of floating around aimlessly. And to use a cliche, another one, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So that's you don't want to give your significant other ammunition for shooting down what you really love to do. So the more serious you are about this, and you really should be anyways, the better for everybody. So I wanted to share this. This is a statistic. I don't have the exact numbers. However, just to give you some context, I looked up how many online sellers there are. So I just Amazon and eBay versus how many doctors there are in the United States. So there are about 12 million, maybe more. Jason thinks it's more, of online sellers and only 500,000 doctors. So the reason why I say this is that this is legit. You can do it as a hobby, you can do it as full-time, but this number keeps growing and growing, especially, I mean, just with everything. Nobody wants to leave the house and go to a real store. So this business really is growing by leaps and bounds. And it's just a different model, but there's nothing wrong with doing what you do. And I hope nobody makes you feel like there is. Now, of course, can you do it better? Maybe. I'm sure everyone can improve. Even in business, you're always looking to say, how can we do this better, faster, more efficiently, whatever. But this is a legitimate business. And I think even with Jason, it started off as really just kind of a hobby. And it just, he figured out how to turn it into something real substantial. And that's awesome. So I don't want anyone to think that this is just a fly by night career choice, because it really, it's huge. Now, as I mentioned before, it is different, right? Because with this type of business, the biggest difference that I can think of is that you actually need to spend money to make money. Like when I go to the office, that doesn't cost me anything except, gas. And if I had to buy a new suit or something, but if you're not buying stuff, you're not selling stuff, right? So that's the biggest difference that hopefully you can explain to your spouse, because that's just how it is. However, if you don't want to do that or can't afford to do that currently, but you still are, you still want to focus on reselling, is you can sell stuff that's sitting around your house. And that means you are, you're getting your house cleaned out. Maybe this is the magic pill, right? You're getting rid of clutter while making money. And this is such a great idea that Jason is actually doing a web class on this topic next Tuesday. So
sign up.
It's free. And and it goes, it does just that. It talks about different places in your house, different things, just to make sure you're thinking about, oh yeah, I haven't used that, under the counter can opener in forever, or never even took it out of the box, whatever. So there are ways to do your business without spending money, but at some point you probably will, because your house will be barren, and then you're going to need to find stuff to sell.
It better not be.
I
Linda,
hope not, Linda.
You just moved. It better be a lot clearer than that.
So now I'm going back to the kind of like the family counseling thing again. So two of the biggest causes of conflict in a marriage are, you guessed it, money and quality time. So I just saw this on the Today Show, I think yesterday or the day before. There was a recent poll of 90 somethings, so people that are towards the end of their lives, and they say that what they regretted most was not taking more time to be loving or focusing as much as they should have on their kids, and that close relationships with family and friends make people the happiest. So that really, I mean, it sounds so simple, but why you don't want to sacrifice one for the other. So, if you need to make money, then you have to, then you have to go to work. But if you want to make sure you're happy and you have quality time with your family, there's at some point you have to be able to turn it off. So, so you want to be able to figure out what you need to bring in and how you'll do it. Because again, you don't want money to be like a topic of conversation if it doesn't have to be. So if you just have this kind of figured out, then you can just worry about focusing your energy on doing it and enjoying your work and your family. So, you just can't ignore your families and friends if you want success and happiness long term. You've got to be able to turn off the work aspect and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So the biggest thing I will say, that this is probably maybe number 2 after the death piles, but maybe even more important is unplugging. So when I was managing the office, every once in a while I'd have to go in on a Saturday, but we planned it. So I would know, a few days in advance, I'm going to have to, go to the office for 4 hours on Saturday morning just to knock some monthly reports out, whatever. So Jason would coordinate that, and he would plan to go shopping or do whatever. And then I get home, and then we would unplug and enjoy the weekend. So agree on your workday hours and schedule the unplugged days, where nobody works. Maybe leave your phones. Should I say it? Leave your phones at home.
Cool.
Jason, I just felt a shudder from across the table. So we actually did that. We did have one unplugged day about 6 months ago. So we're definitely due. And I will speak for him when I know he enjoyed it.
Well,
right. He did. And we really do need to do another one. It's just, you want to just coordinate. If you had a 9-to-5 job, assuming your spouse is a 9-to-5er, then you don't really even have to have these conversations. But because you guys can basically work 24/7, and I know some of you do, you really just have to be cognizant of that and make sure you are trying to, as much as possible, coordinate. So try to coordinate your weekday with your spouse's hours or schedule. Even if your spouse is retired, you can still agree on work hours versus not work hours, so that your family doesn't take a back seat to in your life. And so now I'm going to change gears. So that is that's the first part. I don't know. Should I see if there's any questions, or just move on?
Sure. Let's clean the screen.
Okay, good. I'm going to have a little sip of water.
All right. So the screen looks clean. Let's have a little cocktail. Actually, let's do this little cocktail here. Any questions from those that have a significant other that doesn't love the thrift as much as the rest of us? Yes, I would pass out without my phone.
It's
and
true.
Yes, Staci is so smart. Yes, she married
also
me.
True. Oh.
There you go. Angela's going to try and bring up a phone fast.
It's awesome.
Go to the movies. It passes the time nicely. All right.
All right.
We'll Scroll on.
All right. So now, as I mentioned, changing gears, we're going to talk. Now that you've got your business all set and you're on all cylinders, you want to make sure that you are investing in yourself. So the wise Mr. Warren Buffett said the best investment you can make is in yourself. I mean, think about it. We're only on this earth for so long. So you want to be able to, there obviously we all have responsibilities, but you want to be able to enjoy what you do and also make sure you're taking care of yourself. Have goals in mind, whether it's financial, social, both. You want to make sure that you're happy, not at the expense of others, but you do want to be not selfishly, but in a good way. So best investment you can make is in yourself. So I don't want this slide to overwhelm you, but this is where we get into a little statistics and numbers, and this is where I this is the stuff that I dig. Now, I did pull this from Fidelity just because I'm more familiar with Fidelity's information because that's my jam. But that Fidelity does a retirement readiness study, which is available to the public. And anything that I show you, if there's screenshots from Fidelity's website, you don't even have to have an account there. You can just go on to fidelity.com, search for retirement accounts, just get the information. If you already use another brokerage firm or bank, they all have the same information. You should be able to get it for free without having to sign up for anything. So I just use Fidelity just because I know where to find all the stuff. So this slide talks about the typical saver. So the good news is the typical saver is on target to have 80% of the income that Fidelity estimates you'll need to cover retirement costs. So the good news is that this was only 62% in 2005. So it's gone up 18% in the last 14 years, or this is actually from last year, I think. So 13 years. So in other words, people are get it and they're starting to save more. However, the study also reveals that half of those surveyed are at risk of not being able to fully cover essential expenses in retirement. And just not to get too granular, but the essential expenses assumes that it's 80% of estimated retirement expenses are essential. So just so you know, I mean, most of the money that you're spending in retirement is things that you have to spend your money on. Rent, your mortgage, your groceries, your medications, all that kind of stuff. So this is really talking about what you need to have to be able to live. So the yellow and the red, if you add the 28 and 22 up, that's 50. So those 50% are not on target. And the red, which is a little worse than the yellow, significant adjustments would need to be made to be able to hit your target. Then the yellow is modest adjustments need to be made. And then the green, we don't have to necessarily worry about that. I mean, the good thing is that it's 50-50, but you don't want to be in the other 50. You don't want to be red or yellow. You want to be green or dark green. So you really want to make sure that this chart shows that it's based on the household ability to cover estimated retirement expenses in a down market. And what that means is just more conservative. So they're saying if the stock market goes bad, then these are the numbers. So it's a little bit more of a worst case scenario, because if the stock market's doing well, then even the yellow people may turn into green. We just don't know, but we're assuming kind of a worst case scenario just because it's much better to have too much than not enough when it comes to retirement savings. So before I go forward, I just want to point out two things, because we're going to be talking about retirement savings. It doesn't have to be a retirement account. I'm going to be talking about just, again, high level, different types of retirement accounts, because most of those are tax deferred or tax advantaged, at least. I don't care how you save the money. You can save it in a jar in your backyard or just a regular old savings account if you have enough discipline to not dip into it. With retirement accounts, sometimes there's some penalties involved depending on how old you are or how long the money's been there. So it kind of is forced not touching. But the bottom line is that you want to make sure you're paying yourself first and that you're putting money aside. You're aware of this type of, aware of your situation so that you know that you're going to be covered if something should happen. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is, don't think you have to be doing this for a full-time job to be eligible for a retirement account. If you make $1, you could put that dollar into an IRA. So it does not have to be a full-time job. It can be, if we're calling it a hobby, part-time job, whatever. If you have earned income, you do qualify to be able to put money away. So I just wanted to make sure that we got that out of the way before we dive in. Okay. So these are the two that people probably think of the most Roth IRAs and traditionals. And the other disclaimer I'll say right now is that you have to talk to an accountant, because there's so many different nuances depending on what your income is, if you're eligible. And if this is a part-time job and you do have savings at work and you're putting money away there are limits, depending on what your spouse does too. So you always want to make sure you're talking to an accountant to determine the best plan for you, depending on if you have a business set up like an LLC, or if you're just doing it as an individual, it doesn't matter. It just means you're going to be eligible for a different type of an account depending on how you're set up and how much you make and what other plans you might have already. Some of these, like a traditional IRA, will help reduce your taxable income, while the Roth is tax-free when you withdraw the money. So but it's still growing tax. It's still growing tax. We'll call it tax-free because you've already paid taxes on the money before you put it in. So it really just depends what your current tax bracket is, what you think your tax bracket's going to be in retirement. So again, there's a lot of nuances, and there's no right or wrong answer. This is just me telling you got to figure it out and save money. So here's another little chart that just kind of goes side by side, comparing the Roths and the traditionals, what the differences are. Traditionals, you have to start taking it out when you're 70 and a half. Roths, you don't, because you've already paid taxes on it. So there's different nuances, again, just based on your individual situation and what you feel most comfortable doing. Now, these are the small business retirement plans, and there was too much for me to dive too deeply into the comparison, but I want to make sure that that this will probably be the most beneficial for you. But again, it depends on how you're set up, and how much money you make, and how much you want to be able to defer, because these small business accounts have a higher contribution limit, and you can put more money away for retirement. So the way I look at it, put away as much as you possibly can. Whatever plan you have, you need to max it out. Again, you want to consult with your accountant. The different plans are based on your how the business is set up, and if you have employees, if you don't have employees, all that kind of stuff. So you want to max it out. You want to make sure your spouse is maxing out their plan. So if they're still working, and especially if they have a company match, at the very least, make sure they're putting enough in so they get 100% of the company match, because that's free money. So you want to make sure that you're aware of all your different options, and what you have and what you need. So I also wanted to make sure that everyone watching is aware that it's never too late to start saving. Hopefully you have some set aside already, but if not, no biggie. It's better late than never. So when you're over 50, there's something the IRS has created, what's called a catch-up provision. So you can actually put more money away. For example, I'm just going to go back to this slide here and show you. See, with the contribution limits here, it talks about $7,000 for 2019 for age 50 and older. That's the catch-up provision. So not all accounts have that. However, there are some that do. So that automatically gives you the ability to throw an extra $1,000 into savings that you normally wouldn't be able to if you were under 50. So just another something to help get this retirement plan going. And you really just have to make it a priority and budget it into your spending. So if you do have a budget as far as how much you spend when you go thrifting, maybe you
budget. What's that?
I said maybe if you do.
Oh,
And this is like the with the cobbler whose children didn't have any shoes. So I got a lot to teach, Jason. But anyways, back to you. So you want to make sure that you are not forgetting about this piece. So if you do have a budget and you want to make sure that you're spending X amount of dollars in a month or a week or whatever, earmark some of that for your retirement account. You can make deposits every day if you wanted to. Sometimes you can just do it automatically out of your account, however you want to do it, but make sure it's not an afterthought. This is, if you ask me, I would fund my retirement account before I would go to the thrift store. That's just me, but maybe it'll be you too. Maybe you do want to work forever, or maybe wouldn't it be nice that if you didn't have to, and you could just do this because you like to, but you don't, if you never sold another thing, you'd still be able to live off your savings. That would be amazing. Right. And, there's so many other expenses to think about or options to think about. But one of the biggest things that I'm probably you won't be surprised when I tell you this is healthcare is the biggest expense. So if you're a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2019, you can expect to spend, any guesses, Jason, how much you're going to spend in retirement on healthcare?
Well, me, I'm sickly, so 100,000.
Close. $285,000.
That's not close.
I was trying to make you feel better in healthcare and medical expenses throughout your retirement. So, typically we plan to the ages of like 94, 96 ish. So that's over, what is that? A 30-year span. You're going to be spending about $285,000 on that. Now, if you're single, women, about 150,000 and men about 135. And that's basically because women live longer. So you got more years to keep yourself healthy. So, when to take Social Security is another question. I'm not going to go into that at all, but that is something that if you ever had a job where you paid into Social Security, there is, something to be said for delaying it as long as possible, because then your payout's more. But if you need it, then you have to understand that it's there and what your options are as far as getting your Social Security. So, the way I think about it, and I think thinking of it as a non-thrifter, and I'm still going to call myself that forever, just because that's how I started, I think of it as savings are guaranteed in the sense that if an emergency or an unexpected expense arises, it may be difficult to sell stuff quickly enough to get the funds that you need, especially if you're injured and you can't sell the stuff. Then what do? You may have tens of thousands of dollars of inventory sitting in your house. Hopefully not, because we talked about getting rid of your death piles. But if you do, then that doesn't do any good because you have to sell it. So, so this, even though obviously the market fluctuates, it depends what you're investing in, all that kind of stuff. But you do need to keep that in mind, is that what can you do to kind of at least not guarantee, but make it a little bit more, have some solid footing, knowing that you've got that fund to fall back on. So this is when I was talking about it's never old you're never too old to start saving, is that, this chart, it's kind of obvious. The earlier you start, the better the better off you'll be. But it shows the same investment, $200 a month, starting at somebody who is 25, which is the blue, 35, which is the green, and 45, which is the red. So even at 45, your $48,000 turned into $100,000 without really doing much. This is just based on an average return, I think, of like 6% or something. I didn't do the math, but I didn't want to be as concerned about the numbers than as the concept. So any money that you're putting away is better than no money. So that really is the biggest point of this, is that you just need to be disciplined. And like I said, whatever kind of account you decide to use doesn't matter. It's just the fact of knowing that that's there, because you don't have that that company that's helping you fund your 401k or giving you a pension or whatever it is. So you've got to make it yourself. So when we do financial planning, it's all like, okay, you either need to have some type of an account to be able to pull money out of, or somehow self-fund yourself. So if if you're independently wealthy and you're doing this 100% for fun, why not still put stuff into an IRA account to defer the taxes? So anyways, that is, those are my thoughts, is that you just want to make sure whatever is right for you. I guarantee you that not saving isn't right for anybody. So, take that for what it's worth. I put this on here just because Jason forgot to take it off. I told you I didn't want the annuity slide on here anymore, remember?
Oh, then skip it.
Well, but now it's there and people saw it. So anyways, I was just going to bring this up just because there are other ways to defer money. And some of them are a little harder to get money out than others. Like an annuity, you can do a deferred annuity where you just put it in and then you just, you take it out, kind of like an IRA after you're 59 and a half. There are some annuities that are income annuities where you actually put a set amount of money in and you get a monthly paycheck. So it's kind of like a pension. So there's a lot of different options. And if you max out the IRAs, if you're lucky enough to be able to do that with an annuity, typically there's no limits on annuities based on what you've done with other retirement savings accounts, because it's insurance. It's not considered retirement savings as far as like the IRS is concerned. But again, just want to let you know that there are a lot of other options, and you just need to pick one or two or three or four or whatever works for you, and make sure that you are taking care of yourself. Oops. So that's us thrifting, which is what this is all about and why I'm here. And scanning. Yeah, I'm waiting in line and then scanning. So there you go. Real life thrifty.
These are two things
pictures
that you would never see her do in the past. But yes, now.
Well, I think I'm holding that big basket because Jason's back's all messed up. And yeah, the scanning. That's a new one in the last year. Probably the last year is really when I've started getting into it.
That scanning picture, back that up.
Oh, sorry.
Is at a record store in Burbank where it's so tall, Staci can't see me, but I can lean over and see her.
Yeah, I had no idea who was doing that. Good thing my roots are looking okay. Yeah.
All right, so we have a few comments and questions.
Oh, wait, we can't forget this one.
Nice pineapples.
I like that shirt. I got to dig that out. Okay. Questions? Did you say there was questions?
Yeah, look, see on the screen there?
Well, that's not a question.
I know, but.
Well, thank you, Ms. Linda.
All right.
So that's fun.
There's a question from Paul.
I don't, yes, I believe you can, depending on how you're set up. So, Jason was set up as an LLC, and then we just switched to an S Corp. And so now he's actually on payroll. And I believe that now does go, part of that goes to Social Security. We have it all set up electronically. So it just comes out of the account. But again, something to talk to your accountant about. But I believe if you're set up as an employee, then you'd employee, even if it's just you, that some of that does go to Social Security. Becky Dick might be able to answer that question, actually.
Here's what Becky said.
Oh.
Look at
nice.
that. That's
Woo-hoo.
Awesome. So Becky's taking it to the next level.
Yep.
Probably that's where my next level will be too. And not skills. Angela says, very, very scary, very honest reality for many of us in this business. Now, Kevin, we didn't want you to get depressed.
Oh, that's what I almost didn't put the chart in just because I didn't want it to be concerning or depressing. It's just, it's kind of a reality, but you just want to, sometimes it's just tough love, and I'm okay doing that because I love you all. What else?
I don't know what my mom's in shock about. Oh, probably you scanning.
Oh.
Craig's letting us know where we can get a loan shark. Rick says every thrifter has a Sherpa. Craig says I need to rewatch about 10 more times. And so is baby Jenna Marie. There you go. Becky was kind of
okay. There you go. Security. Yep. All right. So there's your answer, Paul. And I think I saw one about when is it best? Do you mean like what time of year, or do you mean when your business is a certain size, or what's can you go be a little bit more specific, Linda? And again, I might defer to Becky on this one too.
Well, I would say get an LLC was the best thing to do, because you get your LLC, you get your business credit cards, your business checkbook, and then it makes accounting so easy because you run everything through that checkbook and that credit card, and you're not cross-pollinating money. It just makes life so easy. And then I went the next step and hired a bookkeeper to keep it all intact. You know, cost money, but they keep everything. I don't got to do nothing. They have access to all my accounts, and then quarterly they go, okay, here's your P&L. I don't do nothing. What I do is what we all do: run our business, and then I pay them to give me my numbers.
So she said, is there an income level? I don't think so, Linda. It's more like Jason just said. It's more of a bookkeeping. I think it's probably more personal in one sense, as far as the bookkeeping, and is it easier to keep it separate and keep it straight, and actually make it an official business, because you do get some and I don't know with all the tax law changes, but you do get certain tax benefits from doing that that you don't get if you're just like a sole proprietor or an individual. And then with the S corporation, there is at that point, and when you get into the corporations, I believe there is a benefit. And I don't know if it's an exact dollar amount, but the more money you make, there are more benefits as you move up the scale into like an S corp or a C corp or something like that. So, so Becky said, talk to your accountant, because it may or may not make sense based on your situation.
But me switching to an S corp, even though it's going to cost more money, because now I got to pay a payroll service, but at the end, in terms of taxes and stuff, I'll save more money. So it was a little bit of a headache getting it going, but once you get it going, you're good.
Yeah.
And what I can recommend on the LLC is get a fun name, because you get on all these lists and then people call you because they want you to use their credit card services. So it brings me joy every day when people call and go, is Big Girl there? Because I'm Big Girl LLC. And when I say, yeah, this is Big Girl, then it's very quiet on the other end of the phone. So I just get tickled all day. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, it looks like, oh, wait. Oh, corporate credit cards are a lovely thing.
Here, add me back to the mix, would you?
Where are you?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
What?
Nope, remove that one.
This one?
Yep. Go
there you are.
Right. Hi. There we go. Should have had me back on there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yep. And then depending on the corporate credit card, that also gets you perks like lounges in airports sometimes, lounges in hotels. A lot of the Sheratons have a lounge that I don't travel enough to qualify to get into, but because I have the business card, I get into. So that means free food, sometimes free booze. Staci rocks. Oh, yeah. Chris had a question earlier, but we had switched from the one half to the other. I said, let me circle back to that, Chris.
Okay.
So she says, what about in-laws or extended family that think you do nothing? What do you have to say to that?
We'll take them shopping with you. Make
them ship.
I would say it's the same as as anybody else. If they care enough to have an opinion, then they should also care enough to let you prove them wrong. Right. So, if they're not local, then, and you don't necessarily want to start sharing, income numbers, but, I don't know. I mean, it just seems like if they're just jumping to conclusions, then have them spend the day with you, or even a couple hours. I think they'll get the idea real quick.
So Angela was kind of apprehensive to face reality, but feel a lot better about the retirement thing now. So Linda says, can an accountant handle getting the LLC? No, you need a business lawyer for that. So what I did was I found the nerdiest one in all of Las Vegas. And I have to see him once a year. He's a really nice guy. I see him once a year and I pay my yearly dues and sign the paperwork. And it's easy peasy. You know, once you get it going, it's super duper easy.
Now your accountant may have some, business attorneys that they could recommend, so you're just not stabbing blindly, shooting in the dark. But so that might be a place to start.
But, Chris said, I'm afraid to make the leap, but I've done it. Becky's done it. Apparently Kevin's done it. There's many of us who have done it. So we're happy to hold your hand. And it's look, to make the leap to LLC, it's super easy. The S Corp was a little trickier, getting payroll set up, getting the right figures. Yeah. But once it's set up and running, then it's running.
Yeah.
Angela said her mother-in-law helped me ship 20 orders one day. It was eye-opening for her. Oh, the in-laws live next door. Well, put them to work.
Yeah.
How many people do you need to start an LLC? Just one. Just one.
And you're basically there's like a managing partner. It's all but it's all Jason. I'm not even on there as a partner at all. Just Jason.
No, because if you have more than one, which you can, but if it's just your business, it's just much easier to have one. You don't have to have any meetings, any minutes, none of that horse crap. Craig and Rick like to show a couple of flips and they say, ooh, how'd you do that? And Linda wants her handheld. Absolutely. But I'm telling you, once you get the LLC, you get the business card, the business accounts, it's so much easier because you spend no time separating crap. It's all separate already. Awesome. And my business visa is Southwest, so it just ties back to my regular Southwest miles. So I have a personal visa Southwest and a business visa Southwest, and they both go to the same place. So I get my rewards in the same place, but I just keep everything very separate.
But same thing with American Express too. The business and the personal are still tied to our rewards.
Oh, that's a great question.
That is a good question. Well, I mean, the good thing, I think it kind of happened over time. So, the good thing is with my income, what he was doing was like what we talked about was like our vacation funds and our fund money. And so it was just more of, I was doing the saving and, and the 401k and all that stuff. And Jason's passion or hobby was just, hey, he's doing this for fun. He's making a little money. We're using that for our vacations. And then I think it was probably right around the time of the TV show. Well, maybe before the TV show. So when was the TV show?
14.
Yeah, so it was before that. So I don't know. It just kind of happened that because when we moved, this is in 2000 when we moved to California, he had a real job. In 2004 when we moved to Vegas, he still had I say real job. I can say that because he was still doing he was doing some regular work, 9 to 5 stuff. You're working at doing hot tubs and all that stuff. And he really hated it. And then he hurt his arm. So I think it was right around that time when he injured his arm and had the surgery and it was touch and go there for a while and came out of it and just really had that, like I talked about, just focusing on quality time, you really get a new perspective. And he really found that that's really what he wanted to do. He was trying to fit into the 9 to 5, go to, punch a clock job, and it just didn't work. And he wasn't happy. And so we finally decided that this is really what he was meant to do. So that was 2000. I think that was about 2006 or 7 after he recovered from his operation on his arm. And that was really when he started to do it seriously and say, I'm not changing out of my pajamas. and I'm going to keep working and this turn this into something. And then you built it and build it, got the TV show, and it just, it's just kind of been snowballing ever since. But I think that was it. I think it was that life-changing event that hopefully some people have, hopefully everyone has it, but not necessarily in a tragic kind of way, but just, some kind of an epiphany that you're like, this is what I want to be doing. And then you make it work. So that was a really long answer, but good question. Thank you.
All right. So I hope this gets you all excited. If you're not already invested in yourself, maybe hopefully get your non-thrifting partner excited to go thrifting. And, Staci is ground zero for it can happen. It can happen. Like I used to have to trick her to go thrifting. I really don't have to trick her anymore. So,
or maybe I just let you think you're tricking me.
We have fun on our Friday night date nights looking through the vinyl at record stores.
We do.
Yeah, see? You never would have said that 10 years ago.
That's true.
I
wouldn't have said that a year ago.
Yeah, probably. So Staci's the example. Let her be the example, and I hope it works out for you. But if nothing else, make sure you start investing in yourself for retirement, so we all can continue the secret beach parties when we're old and retired on some beach somewhere, having cocktails.
Where is it? There it is.
Or tequila.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, see, Rick is the same as Staci,
Yep.
and they would have never done this 10 years ago. Now full time. Great info.
I don't know if now full time will ever be after my name, but you never know.
Oh my God, Angela's husband's scanning CDs. Woo!
Woo!
No, X that out. Is it the same crap from yesterday?
It was.
Yeah. Now I get weird Skype.
Weird Skype calls. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in live tonight. And
thanks for having me.
Those of you who watch after the fact, enjoy. And if you got any questions about any of this, oh my God. If you got any questions about any of this, feel free to pop them into the Secret Beach on this post for the webinar. And Staci will be happy to answer them, or me, if I can.
Yeah, for sure.
And Kevin wants to retire now. All right. Get it, Kevin.
Congratulations, Kevin.
All right, everybody. We'll see you Thursday on Thrifty Business. Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.